This is John Ostrander for NPR, here to talk about a touching story written by Mark Haddon, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime is a brilliant novel portraying a simple murder story through the eyes of a complicated autistic child, Christopher Boone. This child, who may be viewed as strange and different in our society, becomes better understood as the story progresses. Christopher is a loving child who simply has a hard time interacting with other people. He lacks understanding towards emotions and motives, but he has the will to discover and investigate all of these traits. Christopher Boone is a very logical thinker. He is unable to make decisions with the use of emotions. Instead, he will use mathematical calculations, colors, and information from previous experiences to help him decide what is right from wrong. In the beginning, Christopher Boone walks outside to find his neighbor's dog Wellington dead with a fork in its side. He finds this troubling but exciting because he likes mysteries. He decides to take it upon himself to solve the case of who killed Wellington. However, in doing this, he finds out more about his family and himself than he might have wanted. The writer of the story, Mark Haddon, is a British novelist who has written multiple award-winning children's books. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime was the first book he wrote intended for an adult audience. It was written in the tense of the 90s, so most readers can still easily relate to it. As a young man, Mark Haddon worked with autistic children, which gives him a first-hand experience of how the autistic mind acts. In an NPR interview with Terry Gross, Haddon talks about his first experiences with the autistic children.
I'm thinking that you might have learned a lot of things about yourself by working with people with disabilities because since some of those disabilities were cognitive, you might have had to change things about yourself in order to communicate to them in a non-threatening way.
Funnily enough, I think I've learned more about myself by being a writer. I mean, the nice thing about working with people with disabilities is that you don't think about yourself. You know, you have to be patient and you have to think about someone else all the time.
Mark, what is your main character's behavioral or cognitive problem?
If he were diagnosed, he would be diagnosed as having Asperger's syndrome, which is a form of autism. I suppose you call it high-function autism, in that he can function on, a day-to-day basis in a kind of rudimentary way, but he has a serious difficulty with life in that he really doesn't empathize with other human beings. He can't read their faces, he can't put himself in their shoes, and he can't understand anything more than the literal meaning of whatever's said to him.
Mark Haddon's book is important because it vividly illustrates how the autistic mind functions. It helps the reader to grow a great deal of respect and understanding towards people with autism. Haddon currently lives in Oxford, England, and teaches creative writing at Oxford University. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime is interesting because it follows the hero's journey. Yet, in this story, being a hero is just learning how to function like a normal human being. After discovering that his father had lied about his mother being dead and that his father also killed Wellington, the neighbor's dog, he decided to run away from his home in Swindon to go live with his mother in London. This is known as the departure from the ordinary world to the extraordinary world, or crossing the threshold. While on his journey to his mother's house, he weathers through a series of trials which may be considered normal for some, but were agonizing and terrifying to Christopher's autistic mind. Normally, Christopher would never talk to anyone he didn't know well, but on his journey he would have to in order to receive directions. He would also have to use the train for the first time and even evade the police. However, all these experiences helped him to grow a little braver and discover the bustling world around him. When he finally makes it into the innermost cave, the reunion with his mother, it is not what he expected. His mother is happy to see him, but she does not have the time or money that Christopher needs to be taken care of. In the end, Christopher returns to his father's house, their journey home, as a changed person. He and his father remend their relationship a few minutes at a time. Christopher is much like Okonkwo in Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart in the sense that he only wants what is best for himself and his family. Okonkwo constantly works to make sure his family is satisfied, and Christopher, even though he does not have the mentality to ensure happiness in his family, still wants his parents to feel loved. These two characters of different worlds both follow the hero's journey and return to the ordinary world as better men. The main difference between them would be that Christopher ended up having a much happier ending than Okonkwo.